Attention! The Looking Up, Looking Out hosts businesses and services are limited to serving individuals located in their areas and only apply to viewers located in Washington State, Oregon, and North Carolina. Disclaimer: this video discusses health topics in a general sense. This information is intended purely for educational purposes only. We do not diagnose or claim to cure. We do our best to provide the most accurate information, although errors may occur. This video should not be a replacement for medical advice. If you do not live in the Washington State or Oregon area, and you have questions about your individual fluid or water needs, please contact your local healthcare provider for a referral to see your local registered dietitian.
Hey all, thank you for tuning in to the Looking Up, Looking Out podcast, where we are looking up the nutrition and exercise information to look out for you. I am today's host, Riley McCorkle, dietitian and diabetes educator extraordinaire.
My name is Samantha. I am also a registered dietitian, nutritionist, exercise physiologist, and entrepreneur.
Hey, and I am Talya. I am a personal trainer as well as a health and wellness coach, as well as an entrepreneur.
Today, the three of us were really interested in tackling this gallon a day extravaganza, where I tend to live under a rock, but I've heard through the grapevine that a lot of people are drinking a gallon of water a day. Kind of on an initial search, my reliable resource of Reddit, there was a thread on the r/ask Reddit feed that many people were claiming to have better sleep, better stooling, better energy. They had improved concentration, fewer headaches, clearer skin, and they lost weight on the gallon a day challenge. What are your findings, girls? Has this been the case for you as well?
Wow,
Go ahead,
loaded
Sam.
question. Loaded question. So that's a lot of claims that water helps and has all the benefits for. When I was doing my research, actually, so when you were saying all these things about like, oh yeah, I could help with headaches and those types of symptoms, I was thinking, man, if I were to try to figure out like, I mean, how much water should anybody drink, right? Does anybody know like how much is a healthy amount of water, or how much we should be drinking in a day? I know growing up, the times you hear, 64 ounces a day is how much you should drink, or the 8x8 rule, to say, some might heard of it that way. So when I was doing my research for our episode today, I was like, man, there has to be like a regulation or a requirement or recommendation for this. And actually, I was looking through the dietary guidelines for Americans, and it's a government resource that basically talks about kind of like health, nutrition, and like lessen sugar sweetened beverages like sodas and juices, and drink more water, and have more nutrient dense meals. So very like general nutrition. And I was thinking, man, this should have like how much water we should probably all be drinking, right? So interestingly enough, it says like little to nothing about water. It focuses more on like all the other components of food and like nutrition. But I mean, it tells you broadly, like, yeah, we should be drinking water more than these other beverages, but it doesn't tell you how much. And I feel like a lot of the time when people search this information, they're trying to figure out how much do I need. And so I feel like it was very unhelpful to say the least, for that information. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, considering it was like a government resource and, tries to tell us all the guidelines for us Americans.
Talia, help us out. Do you know how much water we should be drinking?
So interestingly enough, I've also looked at the dietary guidelines and there was literally nothing in terms of at least a range. I was hoping for at least a range for, what is good. So just from a lot of research that I've done, what I've seen in a more general sense is, and this is not from, these are oftentimes from what I found from blogs, what I found from maybe someone that works as a dietitian or a nutritionist or someone in the fitness world, maybe doing a blog or review on a website like Women's Health or what's another kind of magazine type company, something like that. And there oftentimes I find ranges on there. So one of them that I found, I can't remember exactly which website I found this from. Oh, excuse me, I do know. So it was from the National Academics of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. It says about 15.5 cups of water each day for men. So that's about 125 ounces. And then 1.5 cups, which is about 91 ounces for women. So yeah, it's really interesting that more academic journals and government websites don't have a range like that, or maybe at least a general number. But I definitely was looking to see what was out there in terms of numbers. So I was seeing, and in a very general sense, that they're recommending about 64 ounces for everybody, regardless of sex, men, women, whatever. What I wanted to find was like I saw what water does. It really helps with cognitive function, weight loss, helps with flushing waste, all that good stuff. But what I wanted to see was what parts of nutrition also contribute to water intake. So I was trying to see, because I've heard people talk about like I like watermelon. So like how much if I drink, a bowl of watermelon, or excuse me, if I eat a bowl of watermelon, how much would that attribute to my water intake? So more like water-based fruits. That's what I was thinking, or more water-based vegetables like zucchini, cucumber, bell peppers, things like that. That's what I was really curious about. Because sometimes when I'm working with clients, I could say, this is the recommendation. However, let's apply this to you. If you're only drinking 2 bottles of water a day, can we get to 3? And, that's still not probably where we need to be according to the statistic I just shared. But what other things can also attribute to that? Because sometimes that can be really affirming for people. Like, I have I have an apple every single day. I have, some cucumbers every day, maybe some more water-based fruits and vegetables. Like, oh, that could probably attribute like 5 ounces or 10 ounces of water. You know what I'm saying? So like I was trying to see if there was anything out there like that. Because like if you think in terms of calorie intake, even little things like adding sauces that adds to caloric intake, or even just non-exercise related what's it called, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Like those are just little things, like even me moving my hands like this is burning a few calories. So I was like, okay, what in a nutrition sense, how much water do we get from food? That's a really long answer, but that's what I have found. And that was kind of my question that kind of started to develop. So I wanted to see if you guys ran into anything like that, or if you know anything for anybody that's like, hey, I drink water, it's still really hard, but hey, Riley said, or Sam said, if I have some watermelon, if I have some oranges, whatever, that might also help them A, eat healthy, and B, boost their water intake.
That's a really great point, Talya, that you found some recommendations, although the DGAs or the dietary guidelines sort of let us down in terms of fluid. At least you were able to find that. You said it was like an engineering association that had some fluid.
It was the National Academics of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine.
Love it. So you're looking at like 125 ounces for men, 91 ounces for women. So let's see, 125 divided by 30. I'm getting about 4 liters for men and about 3 liters for women. So right off the bat, you've got 4 liters. That's about a gallon. Already, women who are drinking a gallon a day are probably a liter over their fluid goals, right?
Nice.
And then you brought up the point about subtracting whatever fluid we get from food. Then I guess what I went ahead and did was really nerded out on the Food Data Central website and calculated how much. Luckily, they have the calories, protein, carbs, fats of each meal, and micronutrients, but they also have fluids, which is fantastic.
Awesome.
So I went ahead, plugged in a standard American diet, kind of waking up with bacon and eggs, having some beef jerky throughout the day. And then
people still eat beef jerky? People
You
still
would be
eat
surprised.
Is there not enough beef jerky on the East Coast? Maybe it's a West Coast thing.
I mean, like, I know about beef jerky. Like, I've had it in the past, maybe like as a snack as a kid. You know, sometimes school would have it. But no, I don't really hear that around here. I really
Maybe it's
don't.
like a Western
maybe
expansion thing. Like as we moved out here to the West, we slayed a bunch of bison and made a bunch of jerky.
I guess
Could have
so.
been.
I guess so. When you said standard American diet, I'm like, I guess we also have to think region specific. And I mean, I apologize for interrupting, but even my mind is going like, I have clients who are, you know, peri or post or even in the midst of menopause. I'm like, how does water intake affect them for those women specifically, or kids, you know? Like when I'm reading these, like it's good to have a general number, but it's not even specific to the population. Like the fact that you said, specific to the American diet. The American diet here versus the West Coast are two different things. I can go down the street and I could go 1 minute down the street and pass 6 fast food restaurants right now. And they're just boom, 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 lined up across the street from each other. So even the standard American diet is going to be different between coasts. So I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, most definitely. I do want to, and sorry to interrupt, Riley. I do want to kind of talk about something that Talya brought up earlier about the like water content. And you mentioned those numbers. I did also find those numbers, which I thought was interesting, but it also included like water from food, which is what you guys mentioned earlier. And so actually, for an example, about like 90% to 100% of water content in some foods you would find would be like cantaloupe, strawberries, watermelon, like Talya mentioned, and vegetables like cabbage, lettuce, celery, spinach, and like cooked squash. Those types of fruits and vegetables would have kind of like that larger amount of water percentage. And like even to like a 70 to 89% would even be like carrots, broccoli, and avocados, bananas, grapes, oranges, pears, and pineapple, which is a pretty significant amount. I mean, 70 to 89, that's like almost 90%. And it's more than 50% of that entire fruit or vegetable. What I thought was interesting was they did have it in some dairy products as well, like yogurt, cottage cheese, and ricotta cheese, which I guess makes sense because of like the moisture content in those cheeses.
Nice. So then, if I'm having a well-hydrated diet, what if I'm getting a lot of fluid from foods? How much should I subtract from my daily total of fluids? How much should I be drinking in addition to my food intake?
That was exactly my question, Riley, is, if I were to drink no water, how hydrated would I be if I included those fruits and vegetables that you mentioned? So that would be what I'm curious to see, is how much I can actually get from food. If there's a percentage, if it's, you get 30 ounces from food. Because I mean, if that's the case, that's still a significant amount of water. Because I know for sure I have clients that don't even drink that much water in a day. They're getting better.
Sure.
That's not me throwing shade, but it's just, you know, where they're at currently.
Yeah, most definitely. And honestly, I'm so happy you said that, Talya, because I actually can give you an answer to that question. So according to the eatright.org, most people get about 20% of water they need from food you eat. So 20%.
Wow.
Okay, that's higher than I thought it would be.
So if you think about it, you mentioned those like cups per day, kind of generally for men and women. So I did some math, and it's about like 72 ounces for women, so about 9 cups. That's excluding the water from food, and about 100 ounces for men, again, excluding water from food. So additional water they would need from water.
Okay.
Because isn't it 11
72 ounces is how much you need to drink in addition to the hydration from food?
Yes.
Oh, so an additional 72%.
So not 72%. So like say, okay, so you mentioned about 91 ounces for women, let's say.
Right.
Right. So 91. Yeah, so like about 72, 73 ounces. So 91 per, like 20% of 91. Because 91 would be like the total amount of water, including food. And so
got you. So what
these
is
ounces,
that? Like the 11 ounces would come from food? Or
so that would be like
21?
That would be about like 18, 19 ounces from food.
Okay.
If we're saying women that have 91 ounces of total water, it'd be about like 18, 19 ounces. And so that would leave them with 73, 72 ounces that they would additionally have to drink from water to meet that kind of general recommendation of the 91 ounces total.
That's not bad.
Mic drop.
Like if we think about what you mentioned earlier, Sam, the 8 for 8, like that, when I remember in school they would talk about, you know, have 8 cups of water throughout your day, you know, 8 ounce cups of water a day, you know, that gets you to 64 ounces. And, you know, like as a kid, you're not thinking about counting how many cups of water you had in a day. But, you know, for people that really don't drink water, especially people who have high demand jobs that are so busy, you know, if you just incorporate more fruits and vegetables, like the ones you previously mentioned, that can already get you close to 20 ounces of water in a day.
Yeah.
Which is probably what they're already in, more than what they're already intaking anyway. So that's encouraging.
Definitely. Yeah. Like that 8x8 or 64 ounce rule. I mean, it's pretty low considering like what these recommendations are for, but at least it's closer for women. It's almost half for men, but like you said, at least they're getting those, if they have those kind of more higher content water foods, it definitely helps out for sure.
And it's watermelon season, people.
Yes, got to get a Hermiston watermelon.
Moral of the story, eat more watermelon.
Yeah, moral of the story, eat more water.
Pineapple, pear. What are the other ones you mentioned? Can you run through that list?
Oh yeah, most definitely. So cantaloupe, strawberries, watermelon, bananas, grapes, oranges, pears, pineapple, avocados, broccoli, carrots, lettuce, cabbage, celery, spinach, and cooked squash.
You're saying those foods are in the ballpark of 90% water?
Those are between 100% to 70%. So 70 to 100% water.
That's still a lot.
Nice.
That's still a lot. That's basically us. Most of us is water anyway. So.
Yeah, seriously. That's basically us. Yeah, I think our bodies are what, like 60% water? So yeah, basically.
All right, people, get your fruits and vegetables in. Stay hydrated. It's summertime.
For sure, for sure.
Drink some water, eat some cantaloupe.
It'd be interesting in a future hydration episode to calculate East Coast standard American diet with West Coast standard American diet and compare that to a plant-based diet, because it is sounding like Sam, you mentioned getting 20 ounces from fluid, 20 ounces of fluid from food, um, and definitely with those sort of well hydrated foods. I was getting figures on the Food Data Central up to 1.1 liters. So
Gotcha. Yeah,
whatever
and
that would be.
and I do want to
Over,
remind you,
yeah.
Riley, that's like for women, and particularly with their numbers, 20,
Mhm.
about 20 ounces for women. Yeah. So it's a little bit more for men.
So then,
But
I'm
even
wondering,
that, like some men I
yeah.
know don't do that well with drinking water. So like that still would give them a leg up in the game. And a lot of men I know don't even have that much fruits and vegetables in their regular diet. So that would
Yeah.
kind of be, I feel like that would be a double whammy of a motivation piece. Like if you don't even drink any water, let's take that off the table. If you don't even drink any water, is that healthy? No. But if you get you some grapes, if you get you some squash, if you get you some spinach, we can at least get some form of water into your body at the very least. Because I'm very big with my clients in terms of piece by piece. It's your health is like a jigsaw puzzle. You got to go one piece at a time. So if we took, forget water, I'm not talking to you about that. Can we get some fruits and vegetables in your diet? Can you start there? Can you get a pack of grapes, wash them, and eat them as your snack? Can we start there? Can we do that? Can we incorporate a little bit of salad?
Yeah.
That sometimes you got to make those little bite-sized little pieces. So that's encouraged. 20% it's not a huge number, and no, it's not healthy by any means. But for how busy people are and for how negligent they can be, and that's a harsh term, but like in terms of what they need nutritionally, that could be a huge help to some people.
That's a real relief, especially if I don't like the taste of water. I'm glad I can just incorporate some fruits and vegetables that I like, particularly in the summertime.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious if you would be able to grade the gallon a day. Would you be able to assign like an A through F grade to the fanatic efforts to increase fluid to a gallon a day, as well as your final thoughts on the topic?
Sam, you're gonna have to go before me. I need to think about this.
Okay.
I'm so serious.
Careful grading system.
Yeah, very careful. Think hard on this one. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so remind me of those statistics, Riley, of like can you repeat those numbers that you were calculating with like the liters to even like comparable to what the recommendations are for the gallon?
Yeah, so the recommendations, and this is total water intake, it sounds like that Talya, you mentioned from the science and engineering and medicine something that it seemed to align with what I was finding with the guidelines that we get from the National Academy of Medicine. Those are from 2004, but I think hydration stays the same. But anyway, looking at like 3 liters of total hydration for women and about 4 liters for total hydration for men. So that would be right around a gallon a day for men if you're not eating food.
I was gonna say you're gonna have to convert that to the metric system because everywhere else in the world is imperial, but we here in America, for some reason, are in the metric system. So I don't know the difference between liters and gallons. I don't know that math. Not even gonna lie to you. So
what do we say? Yeah. So yeah, the 4 liters is like 1 gallon. And if we really like our English and American measuring systems, we have 4 quarts. We can use 4 quarts, would be about 4 liters, which would be about 1 gallon. So there you have it.
Gotcha. Okay.
4 liters, 1 gallon. I can remember that.
So
nice.
It sounds like men are more on that like 1 gallon. And so to go back to your question, just to make sure I understand, So we're grading to see if like that is a recommendation we should continue, or to change it to 1 gallon instead of these cups and numbers, or just to clarify, please.
I'm kind of I'm wondering how much you would recommend that I get on my what do you call the newfangled Instagram, and tell everyone about my experience of getting a gallon a day of water. Is that something I should do?
Okay. So it seems to be like there's always nice to have like a target to have to reach, but realistically with the general population, like Talya has mentioned before, I mean, there's some people who it's hard to even get 1 glass of water and even eat our fruits and vegetables in general, let alone fruits and vegetables that have higher amounts of water. Even though some of those actually fruits and vegetables tend to be in like really easy foods like salads and things like that. So I would say it's a good goal, but at the same time, if we're realistic, starting small and working our way to that 1 liter or 1 gallon would be beneficial, but we also have to consider other factors too. Like for an example, say, Riley, you have that goal to reach 1 gallon a day, but also maybe there's times where even your environment where you live, it's hot. You have 4 seasons. It's hot sometimes during the months, and then it's not other times during the months. So it might be easier to reach that goal maybe in the summertime, springtime, but it might be a lot harder to reach that goal in wintertime because it's not super obvious that we're sweating. We're not probably excreting urine as much because it's not super evident to even intake water that often because it's cold outside. I mean, we're trying to get away from the cold and not be near water. I mean, I feel like most people kind of dread taking showers in the wintertime because it's so cold. So there's lots of factors. Yes, hot showers. Those are nice. But there's definitely lots of factors that, play with fluid intake, as you know, as a dietitian, and definitely things that we need to consider. But to grade it overall, I would say about a C, because it definitely depends on lots of external factors.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Got a C grade for the gallon a day from Samantha. What do you think, Talya?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to break this down into 3 parts. This is where my mind is going. So the first part is digestibility. And that is for if I tell somebody to drink a gallon a day, how digestible is that for them to actually fathom that they have to drink a gallon a day? So, and that's hard because everybody is different. So in a case specific sense, I would give it an F, only because it's not, I can't make everybody drink a glass of water. My own mother thinks water is boring. So in a case by case basis, I would give it an F because there is no way I can get every single one of my clients to drink a gallon of water. So in the category of digestibility for case by case, definitely an F, because there's no way. Now, in a general sense, so digestibility in a general sense, I think it's an A because it gives you a number. Numbers are very easy to see. If you tell me that gas went up 10%, I can see that effect on my bank account, as well as the physical numbers that are on the little sign thing. So I think in a general sense, it's an A because I can say, okay, I have to drink at least 91 ounces a day. That lets me know, what is that? That's, if I were to drink a 16 ounce normal water bottle here in the States, that's probably like 6 of those, maybe 5, 6, between 5 and 7 of those. So that I can visually see I have to drink 5 to 6 of those a day. And there's a pack of 24 I can get from Costco. So like that'll last me a couple days. I can do all the things. So I think in a general sense, it's an A. So, and then from a, what was I going to say? I was going to say from a practical sense, I'm going to give it a C. So overall, I would probably give it like a low B to a C. And I say practical sense because, again, people are so busy nowadays. Like, I have a client who's a vet tech, and she told me she literally didn't even have a chance to have water all day, all day. And yes, of course, it's a choice, but when you're busy at work and you're focused in and locked in on something, it can be really hard to be like, okay. And I really like how you mentioned, Sam, before about the seasons. Like, when it's hot and you're sweating and you feel sticky and gross, of course you're going to remember to drink water. But when it's, 15, 20 degrees outside, you're not probably as inclined to drink water versus hot cocoa or hot cider or eggnog or whatever. So I'm gonna be a little bit more gracious, and I'm gonna give it like a B minus, only because I think the most helpful piece of this is it gives people a number to get to. For some, it can be pretty daunting. For some, it could be like, okay, I can work up to this. So I think as health and fitness practitioners, it's our job to help it become more digestible for the people we work with. To say, I'm not telling you to get to this today, or even tomorrow, or even next week. However, if you get there, we love that and we will celebrate that. But this is where we should strive to get to in the future. And whatever pace we take that's on you. Either way, I'm here for the ride. So I'm gonna give it a low B. I'm gonna be a little bit more gracious, and I'm gonna say B minus.
Well, that sounds great. Now I feel like my grade is shifting a little bit.
My mind is just thinking about all of my people. So
things.
like it's hard. I know some
Yes.
people where if I tell them drink a gallon a day, they're gonna do it. And then there's others where they're gonna literally fight me on it. So like that, my mind immediately goes to the people I work with. So like that, yeah, it's
A
hard.
case by case basis. And
Case
I
by
like what you
case
said
basis.
about, having like for some people that having that specific number is really useful, that it's something practical that you know for sure if you were on the right track today or not. Um, so yeah, that's definitely worth considering. I initially had stamped um, a grade of a C minus for the whole gallon a day. Uh, Mostly because
You gave the
with the
lowest grade.
calculations we did. What's that?
You gave the lowest grade.
Well, you led with the F for some scenarios, right?
For one of them. So I averaged
For
to
one of
about a
them.
B minus, a C.
Yeah. When I was hearing some of the pros, so C minus is kind of what I had in my head coming into this, and maybe there's certain scenarios that a C plus would be appropriate. I'm thinking for some of the folks that I work with, but I'm thinking especially this gallon a day nonsense. um, this gallon a day popular diet challenge, I feel like really gets into this diet mentality that's a lot of these short-term efforts for most people. I'm definitely generalizing here. Um, but what I'd rather see is a lot of the unrestricted amounts of those fruits and vegetables, as long as we have access to them, getting a lot of, kind of leaning toward a whole food plant-based diet is going to solve a lot of your hydration issues completely. I mean, when we're getting upwards of a liter of fluid uh, per day, over 64 ounces just from the food we eat, then aiming for an additional 4 liters is not going to be the wisest thing, especially if we're kind of outpacing what our kidneys are able to get rid of. So there's more we could touch on this topic, but there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a grading scale from us three here at the Looking Out and Looking Up podcast.
So that's about a
Nice.
C. I would
Yeah.
say between all of us, that's about a C.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do want to touch on something kind of last thoughts here. I liked what you mentioned too, Talia, that like it's like case by case basis, and it's very true. And like Riley said, it's like, are we having too much that our kidneys can't handle? And that kind of leads to like disease conditions too, because it's like general recommendations, but just because they're general doesn't mean they're suited for everybody, because there are some people who have actually like fluid restrictions because of their disease, or they're maybe at a higher altitude and maybe they need even more water, or extreme weather conditions like I mentioned earlier. So there's just so many external factors. Exercise is another one. Like if you exercise more often, you're going to need a little bit more hydration, compared to somebody who's not exercising as much or as vigorously. So yeah, there's a lot of factors to think about when it comes to hydration, and having like that kind of broader, more practical number is nice, I think, for a goal for those who are for the most part healthy and don't have any particular restrictions or diseases. But if it is somebody who has a little bit more to worry about nutritionally or disease wise or exercise wise, they might need to really talk and consult a professional to double check that it's okay to drink this much water. Because actually, interestingly enough, when I was going through this, they were talking about like, okay, how much water should I drink? But they never talk about like as much, how much water is too much, because that can happen too. Sometimes having too much water and being overly hydrated can also cause effects in the body. So it's very important that like everybody goes through information that they see across the internet, with a grain of salt, and have an open mind to be able to talk to professionals for sure to help them make the right choices that's best for them. Because even though it is a general recommendation, it definitely sure it's not a one size fits all, which is something, of course, we would all like. But unfortunately, um, everybody's different. Like you said, literally everybody.
I definitely want to share last thoughts. I have three things going through my mind right as you're speaking, Sam.
Perfect.
I appreciate you, Riley, being the moderator and going through this, because like this episode would probably be like an hour just on fluids alone. When we were like, oh, we can only talk about this for 20 minutes. I don't even know how long we've been doing this now.
Yeah.
So the first thought is definitely, how much water is too much. And I remember sitting in college, and one of my professors was talking about hydration, and shared a story about a kid, a football player. I want to say he was in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, basically one of the hottest places, the hottest and most humid parts of the country. And he actually passed away because he drowned himself. So it's possible. So absolutely, I'm a big believer in things being, it's very much a case by case thing, and I'm a huge believer in that. So anybody that's watching this, I would definitely encourage you, like Sam said, to talk to a professional, one of us three, maybe primary care, specifically seek out someone who is a registered dietitian, has experience learning. Anybody that's maybe involved in renal therapy, anything to do with the kidneys, definitely would encourage you, because it's going to be very much case by case, based on your lifestyle, based on your age, and just based on who you are.
It's worth saying that everybody is so unique, so our listeners can seek out the professional guidance of Sam or Talya here, and have your own fluid needs estimated, to make sure we're in that Goldilocks zone of not too little, enough fluid to notice some of these benefits of the energy level, the concentration, and the clear skin and all that, but also not so much fluid that we are putting ourselves into something like hyponatremia, which is definitely possible, where people can have these fluid imbalances that can affect our brain, and also for outpacing the kidneys. That only takes about 3 cups every hour to outpace the kidneys. So if you have one of those giant water bottles of encouraging advice for drink this much by 11 o'clock and this much by 3 o'clock, make sure you're not doing more than 3 cups an hour. So yeah, I think there's definitely more that can be said on this topic. So in the future, I'd like to dedicate more of a 2-hour episode to hydration.
Maybe include electrolytes too. I think that's definitely, I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That'd be a good one.
Stay tuned for our electrolyte episode, folks out there. Any final thoughts before we take it away?
I think, yeah, everything was really well said. You guys are super awesome. And again, thanks, Riley, for being the host for today's episode. And of course, Riley is also an expert in his field and would also know how to do fluid requirements if anybody needs help with that. But yeah, any of us are more than happy to help any of our viewers, and we'll have our contact information attached to this episode. And yeah,
drink your water.
And eat your watermelon.
That's my only thought. That's my final thought. It's summertime. The world is hot. Drink your water, except for my people that are below the hemisphere. Or equator, I guess.
Okay, that's all the time we have today. Thanks again for joining us. If there are any topics you want our expert opinion on, want us to research, or have any questions about, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe for more great content. If any of you are interested in working with any of us personally to work on your lifestyle changes like we discussed today, from a preventative approach, the links to our businesses are in the description below. We'll keep looking up to look out for you. See you next time.